All right, so we got the long-awaited Ben. I've been trying to grab you from the stage. Welcome to the live podcast in New York, and you've been a hit so far.
Well, so far it's been very exciting. It's I understand Kai has blamed me for us having to do this year by sitting here last year and talking into a mic and going, "Why don't we do this next year?"
Yep.
And here we are. It's terrifying, but it's also very exciting to get to really control the conversation the way that BIG sees the world of architecture.
Well, tell me what's terrifying, because I'll tell you from the outside.
It's public speaking. Shows that.
But you do, I think a lot of people will be intimidated by the work that you guys do as a firm, in that it goes far above and beyond your typical business as usual project. So there's so much to learn and to share, and I'm sure you're seeing that today.
Right, it is, and to be honest, that's why we love sharing it, because we show that it's possible. I mean, we've talked to manufacturers, fabricators who can build things that there was a point where we could draw things, make a model out of them that you couldn't build. We can build almost anything now. Fabrication has come so far in my lifetime. It's mind-boggling, actually.
In mine too.
Yes.
And you have less gray hair than I do. But,
I
So I'm going to push you on this one, because this is a topic I'm very passionate about, coming from the facade consultant side to the manufacturing side to the contractor side. I haven't seen everything, but I've seen a lot of the different angles and how this can be challenging. Getting intentional project specifications aligned with the project intent from a budget standpoint, a performance standpoint, and aesthetic standpoint, and all the above. How often I run into project specs that I know are rinse and repeat from the last project, and certain line items are overlooked or not applicable to that project today. And that disconnect, when the contractor comes in to give their final pricing and they're advised, communicate through the general contractor. Don't be going to my architect right now. Right. Architect, I'm handcuffed. Yeah. I'm not supposed to be talking to you right now.
Yes.
So I think this is a systematic challenge and problem that needs to be addressed.
I think you're talking a lot about the idea of like this voluminous specification versus this more succinct narrative that is truly, laying out the design intent. Those 2,000 pages of specification that we pretend nobody is going to read them. And so we make them as if nobody is going to read them. I don't, but that can happen. So when you do need to read it, you read it and you go, that doesn't even match my project. And that's often because the specifications are put together later in the construction of the documents. What I love about the narrative, the design intent narrative, preliminary project description, call it whatever you want, words. I wish I could change my name to Ben Caldwell, architect and director of words. I would be so much better than specifications, because that's really what we're talking about. We're trying to tell the story with words and lines to the owner so that they understand what they're getting, and then to the estimators and contractors about how they're going to then now tell me how much that's going to cost and how much is it, and how to build it. And if I do that with a whole bunch of like detailed minutia about the drywall or the screws and the things that are really, everybody knows those things already, but they don't know what we want it to look like, how we want it to feel when the project is complete. And that design intent that we can write, we have words to describe buildings. You talk about the assemblies instead of the parts.
So what are your thoughts, and where my brain went, I recently did a video on saying, if you look at an IGU makeup, it tells a story, the design intent, the performance criteria, safety elements, bird friendly, all these things.
Right.
A 1,000-page spec book becomes too conflated, and you could go down deep rabbit holes and misconstrue a lot of base assumptions. What if we start from a place more of performance criteria and targets, and how the manufacturer wants to get there is up to them. What glass infill, how they thermally break their window frame, all these various things. Sure. One thing being compliant with code, but I think, are we headed more in a stage of that design narrative element that's more digestible?
I hope so. How's that for an answer? Because that design intent, that those words that you're talking about, those are the things that first off the owner can understand, and so they know what they want. They have owners are really smart, of course, but they don't know whether they need which ASTM, as an example.
They don't want to know. That's why they hire the architect.
That's right. But they do want to know that this assembly is going to perform and it's going to look the way they're expecting it to look. The part that I love about the narrative description of a project versus the specification description of a project is that I can get the design. In our office, the design team, the people who are designing the project, work on that document. It's unheard of, that the words that are coming out of our architecture office, the specifications normally, those happen by a specification team during, if you're lucky, halfway through design development. The design intent is already established. The specification writer is being asked to interpret these drawings and put them into words. How about if the design team actually helped you craft those words and put that narrative together? And because it's, first off, because we've used the word narrative instead of specifications, they're like, I do know more about this than I think I do.
Do you think designers are left in a little bit of a silo when it comes to getting price feedback before a general contractor is onboarded? So you're in those 50 SD, 100% SD, and you know what you want. You have an idea. Is there enough interaction with the material suppliers to get a better sense of this is going to cost this, but we can only source this from here?
That's one of the great parts about the narrative, because it's an assembly. If I again, to use the plural drywall screw as an example, I do care, but what that drywall screw costs, which is in the specification under drywall, I can get prices on that, but that's not going to do me any good. If I have a double layer drywall with sound insulation in it, somebody, the estimator actually knows how much that costs to build. If we put together our documents early on as assemblies, we can get like an amazingly accurate price very quickly. The computer can do marvelous things like takeoffs of a double layer drywall system, drywall partition with acoustic insulation in it in about 10 seconds. Probably less than that.
I have heard recent feedback in, I would say, many markets, uniform, that facade consultants either onboarded by the architect to develop the glass glazing specs, the aluminum curtain wall window specs. They're struggling because contractors are disregarding the specs and bidding the projects how they want to bid them to be competitive to get the job.
There is a comfort level with every contractor. If they've worked with Bob and Susan's facade company before, they are going to go to them because they're very comfortable. They know what they're going to deliver. It's often for us in particular, we're often the out-of-state architect. We don't even know who the best fabricator might be in that area. We'll try to find out. We'll try to work with we rely on the contractor to help us get to that person earlier. So if we, who are you going to have build this building for us? Can we start talking to them also?
Is that a firm-wide approach? If you're trying to win over, you're bidding a job, you're competing against 3 other architecture firms, you're saying, we're building this dorm in this new region, we don't have experience. We need to be integrated with your construction team deeper at an earlier stage.
That's a trickier question about how.
Is that the goal? That's the goal.
The goal is to try to, of course, design the right building for the right price to our ethos and and interpreting the client's needs. So
that's the thing that I think it's important to remember. There's no right or wrong. It's understanding the client's objectives and goals and aligning everybody.
So often when we are working in a new area, we will align ourselves as a team. We are often asked to align with a team to make a proposal for a building. I'm sure we don't really like to do a design for a building when we're competing. That's giving away architecture services. We try our very best to demonstrate that we're going to listen, and we show by example that we have listened, and give the client a level of comfort that we will give them the building they hope for. And again, with the price, there's some nudging that we often have to do for the price. There's a hope for price, and then I'm not going to get it for that price, but this is more, okay, if not that, it's this, but it's not this, way over here.
Final question. You're onboarding a new team member onto your team, young architect that wants to be deeply ingrained in specifications. Out of all the project stakeholders, who do you...
By the way, I give him a big hug, or her a big hug.
Welcome, thank you. Yeah. Who would you encourage them most to have a deeper relationship with, in the sense of talk to the owner more, the client, focus more on the material suppliers, focus more on this. That'll help you actualize what it is that you're trying to achieve.
My gut reaction is we talk to our PR department who set up the contract, and our legal department who gives everybody a copy of the contract. What is our deliverable? The question of deliverable is so important when we're doing any work. If we get so excited about doing a new project and it turns out all we need to do is the site plan. We've designed them a whole building. We've talked about it. We have yet to, we're not as good at this as I wish we were, but what an ideal situation with a new team, even and a new member in that team, is we do a dramatic reading of the contract so that everybody who's working on it understands what the client's expectations are. And we're going to over deliver. We always do that, but we don't want to spend too much time over delivering something that they haven't, not only have they not asked for, they maybe don't even want it. So we have to go backwards. It's no fun going backwards.
Align expectations with deliverables.
Right. Yes. And so, in our team, in our own office is
and that's unique to every project and every team.
And particularly at BIG, we are often hired because the owner is actually looking for rebranding. I mean, we're doing, a baseball stadium that's going to not look like any other baseball stadium that's ever been built, because that's what they wanted in Las Vegas, of all places.
Ben, thanks for joining. I enjoyed the conversation.
Okay.
All right, our next segment, we got
Jose.
I know, Jose. We got Jose in the house from TT, and it's been a while that we caught up. Jose, it's good to see you, and welcome to your first Facades Plus show in New York.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Where have you been?
I've been all over the place. Well, no, I have been working a lot in the office. And I said, this is the year I need to get out and just see what the cool kids of Facades are.
So I think it would be interesting for you to share with the audience TT's approach. I know you can tackle things from the structure, from a facade standpoint, envelope performance standpoint, to sustainability, and sort of how you bring that triage together to come up with a comprehensive offering, because everything we just described, you have specialists in any respective area. So, how you focus on firm-wide, bringing those practice areas together to help make consolidated design decisions.
Absolutely, and that's something that we strive on at TT, and I'm glad to share that is that there is a cohesion on, particularly in those three areas of practice, four actually, facades, structures, sustainability, resilience, and facade restoration renovation. So we sit at the same place in the same office, and the integration of different practices is not like siloed. We are collaborating and exchanging all that information all the time when we are in the project. Sometimes we work independently, almost, right? Structures alone, facades alone, sustainability, et cetera. But when we have that opportunity to have that integration is great, and is really enjoyable. And one example that I put on that is, let's say with more like facade and sustainability integration is in the field of facade analytics and facade performance, right? Is anything that you can imagine from, complex facades with thermal bridges that needs to be simulated or integrated, passive house level of performance. There's a sustainability component of that, an energy component of that, a facade design and detailing component. So we're doing all that in house at the same time.
So at what point are we going to see now the mechanical component is the big unknown, and it's the area where if we bring that in, you get the full suite. It seems like the mechanical guys want to stay away from facade focus.
Yeah, and I think they live in their own thing, and honestly, is one of those things that the facade has gotten so good and so stringent, particularly here in New York, stringent on the performance side, that we know, for example, in sustainability areas, we're designing to New York City Code 2025. The facade is going to be as good as it gets, right? And which, of course, there's always room for improvement, but we are hitting that plateau on performance, and then the mechanical team will have to pick up the slack, or the rest of it with the mechanical systems, which is also becoming even easier, at least from the sustainability standpoint, which is the field where I am specialized on, because now it's all electric in New York City, heat pumps, that sort of things, is like the performance is just going, compared to where we were 15 years ago. And I think we are going in the right direction.
That was an interesting comment you said, though. You think we are at a max capacity or peaking from a performance standpoint. You truly believe that?
I truly believe that. I truly believe it is plateauing when you combine performance, affordability, constructability, sustainability, energy efficiency, all of those things together. Of course, I think that's where we are plateauing right now on the when it comes to facades.
Do you think decisions made around sustainability are in alignment with as-built performance outcomes and true building performance? You know, you can model the perfect building, but then when you have to factor in all these unknowns and thermal bridging that might come up at balcony conditions, your interface conditions, and any associated reductions that might have to be taken. Are you seeing a disconnect between expectations up front in terms of how the building should perform versus what's actually happening with the end result?
It depends, because things have changed a lot in the last several years. So a lot of new buildings that have come in line in the last, 7-8 years, now we are starting to see that feedback on how they are performing and so on. So it's all over the place. And I don't think there is a distinct, clear issue that I can point out of what's happening, what was designed versus how it's performing, at least when it comes to the physical building. Of course, like you said, operations and how the building is used is a completely different thing. It doesn't matter how efficient we can design and work for the building, the facade, and any systems. If somebody comes and a residential building they leave the window open and the heating on when they go to work, there's nothing you can do about that. Or then probably integrate the system so they try that.
On a final note, as a sustainability expert, what does sustainability mean to you?
Well, it is my career. It's what I have been doing for the last 20 years. I actually don't like using the word sustainability as much, right? Often I actually use the word sustainability just because that's what people relate to. But I like to prefer more about what we do is building performance and resilience, right? We are analyzing how to optimize the design, the performance, the construction, body carbon of a building, and all of that integrated, of course, has environmental benefits and impact for the planet and the people that are using it. And also the resilient component is we're heading to uncharted territory in the future of what a climate is going to bring. So that's what I like to. I think sustainability is like a nice outcome of that. So I am a building performance resilience consultant. But sustainability for friends and family.
For the line card. So I like that idea about trade-offs and understanding building resistance. So Jose, thanks for coming on. I expect to see you at next year's event.
Probably I will be here.
We look forward to seeing your face more.
Absolutely.
Here we are with our next edition, and we have, I would say, categorize you as a lot of things. NYU, but let's have you. Before I go really
do a quick some bona fides. Okay. Well, it's super great to be here. Love being at the Facades conference, and big shout out to the Architects newspaper for putting this on. It's great. And also BIG, which is one of the sponsors or one of the groups.
Co-chairs.
Bjarke is a good friend. I've known him since he was like this small, and now he's a giant. So love that guy. And Kai, wherever you are. Hi, Kai. Love you too. So I'm Mitch, Dr. Mitch Joachim. I'm an architect and urban designer, co-founder of Terreform ONE. We're a national nonprofit based in Brooklyn, New York, in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and been doing this work now 20 years. I'm also a full professor at NYU, where I teach at Gallatin on individualized study. So I help students who want to combine things like higher mathematics and economics and violin, and you make your own major. And that's a major I just made up right now, but it's a kind of choose your own verse education. A lot of the work we do is in research, and that research is heavy into sustainability. And a lot of things come down to this demising line, which is the facade between the built environment and the environment itself. And I don't really see a facade as a very clear point. That's for me, theoretically. I think it bleeds into the building, the cause and effect. Like 30 feet in, you'll get effects easily for facades, and then everything on the exterior and what that means for a socio-ecological system. So we're doing some work that I'm going to show in about an hour on butterflies and facades. It's a sanctuary for keeping them alive. Other projects that are called multi-species designs for facades, which we occasionally do. We do that today with things like a planter on a facade. I think we've had some great conversations with the building department in New York City about, can we do this animal on a facade? And we've heard some really gruff answers like, I don't care if there's a cat on your fire escape. That's not in the code.
So have you, well, let me ask you this, because you said that at the core it's sustainability, and Terreform's coming on 20 years.
We're going to be 20 years old. Yeah, 2006. Yeah, we're a couple months.
Have you been preaching a lot of the same mantra over the years? Are things being heard or received today differently than they were in the past, whether it's code-driven, policy-driven, or just the theme of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I really respect that. The word preach, for sure. I have no religious affectation. I'm very passionate. Our entire team is about the environment. Have been like that since I've been in school. And not much has changed. Well, actually, the change has been maybe for the worse. And I don't want to be Mr. Anthropocene apocalypse guy, but it hasn't improved. And I know there's a lot of smart people in engineering, especially in products with facades, that want to make the world green. And it has been this nonstop litany or mantra of, hey, let's do things that have a real impact on the environment, that count more for not only humans, but for the world around us. It just comes down to some serious facts, like it's economics, it's longevity. Like you can't make a facade out of materials that will decay. And there's things that have been around for centuries, glass and steel. There's good materials.
Concrete.
For sure, concrete. And we don't have bio-based alternatives that work to that level. Mass timber, CLT, yes, it's great. I mean, please, more of that. But it's still not convincing for so many different programs and types, scales, and also client needs. So it requires all of us to be educating our clients also willing to absorb the impact. Actually, I don't think they're going to absorb the impact. I think they want to do it because it's joyful, it's phenomenal, works well, and makes sense financially.
So are you supporting architects, material suppliers, contractors, or all the above?
We got to get to the whole kit and caboodle. Every part of the animal needs to be on board because we work cohesively. It's a choreography. Like certainly people who control the facade have a lot of authority in that area, but there's going to be, you're reacting to city codes, you're reacting to energy policy, you're reacting to your client's needs. And it does make sense if you can compare and contrast the benefits of doing something for the environment versus not. Like we had a whole added value argument for our butterfly facade. And the idea is that it's an amenity. And the concept was not a single square footage of space was lost. We extended the facade to a double skin. It's about 3 feet in total. It's a mass timber design. And then on the inside, the amenity is a vertical meadow teeming with biodiversity, teeming with life, and all of the nutrients and needs that butterflies, in this case, monarchs, I should be specific, need to get their population jump-started again. And we took them as a client. I know our client is great, and probably watching, but he too agrees that like the monarch butterfly, which is native to New York and going extinct, perhaps we can make a project that builds some awareness and do it in the skin of a building and do it as an amenity. So when people rent spaces in that building, they look out their window and that window is fecund and rich with all kinds of biodiverse activity. And it's porous and allows for the influx of air and rain, not all of it, but the right amounts, and engineered to a T to accept the fact that these kinds of mammalian life forms will thrive inside there. We have that capability. It's just we've chosen not to do it.
How do you, and sorry for interrupting, my
please,
brain's going a lot of different places. How do you balance something that's very relevant and you're passionate about today versus coming forward with an everlasting design, knowing these buildings are going to be in place for decades or maybe a century, and something that you were super passionate about 10 years ago that might not be so relevant today? Loaded question.
It's a two-parter. The first thing is, for instance, for facades, we work directly with the chemical source. So we were sponsored by BASF for a long time, biggest German chemical company there is. And we worked with their team to rethink the chemistry of concrete. They did most of that chemical work, created a product called Green Sense. And I don't work for BASF. We're a nonprofit. They were funding our research, no strings attached. So they made a concrete that was as green as possible, impregnated with fly ash, absolutely brilliant, fireproof, structural, could last 200 years. Absolutely amazing. We did a panelized system for the facade. All of that was also built in with the geometry for the needs of the monarch butterfly, how they proboscis drinks, chrysalli stages, mud bathing, butterflies mud bathe. It's kind of fun to know that. All of that's inside the geometry of that concrete. And we have something that meets all the constraints. So we do the heavy engineering first, solve that. And then what's left over, usually I'm going to say 10%, we think about where design can make it fabulous. And part of that programming and engineering is also the life cycle of an organism. So that's there. But we want to make it look fabulous because people have to look at it and they're like, well, you want to build in desire for that.
Are you typically attracting an architect, or like you said, everybody has to be on board? So
Yeah.
are you trying to sell the owner, or you're working through the architect to have them sell their dream to the owner?
Yeah, well, we are architects and engineers ourselves. We're also cell biologists, entomologists. We have an odd team of people. And our clients are first and foremost some species at the edge of life. So like that's what we do the work, and the research is funded by all different types of groups. 4 times National Endowment for the Arts winners. Recently, NISCA supported all kinds of grants where we choose an insect or a mammal and build around that first. And our engineering team and architecture team goes there first. And then clients come in secondary, where they saying like, well, I don't know a building like this in New York. Can we have it? And we're like, of course. You want to do some research together? Great. And then we're more than happy to hand it off to other teams so they can take it from there. But as far as the other question, like it's working on this almost for 20 years and seeing very little movement of that needle, it's hard. But when I was in school, no one talked about sustainability. I was trained in the 90s, not to date myself, but I loved it. And everything was, we wore all black, still doing that here, apparently. And we talked about deconstruction.
They didn't know it.
And if you'd said solar panels, you were done.
Right. So what?
I'm glad that's changed. It takes a long time for things to change.
Have on a closing note, do you feel now that you're getting, I don't want to say more traction, but you've gotten traction and you have proof of concept and you see the buildings, you could feel it, you could sell it more than just a concept.
Yeah.
Does that give you more energy today to continue to do what you're doing?
I think so. It's a good question, because every once in a while you question why you're here, what is it you're doing. Life can kind of be a bit of a downer. And then every so often, something encourages you. We had Norman Foster came by just one day. So I love your work. I'm like, I love you.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I love you. Can you come to our foundation? And we get this kind of level of encouragement, and that's good. I think like it takes some time before things reach fruition. And that's part of it. I mean, I remember when Zaha Hadid had designed the Maxi in Rome. And this was in the early 90s. It took 20 years before she was standing in that building. And it's a phenomenal building. Or Daniel Libeskind didn't build anything until he was like 50. And then Jewish Museum in Berlin, amazing. I think architects should allow themselves a space and time to experiment, get it right, and then when you do push it forward, it does make a significant difference. I mean, I worked for Gehry for years. Bilbao was a game changer. Nothing to do for the environment, but all titanium, but wow, what a building.
Yep.
So that excites me. And I think the industry will sort of move with that when it makes sense for people to, they've got to earn, they got to pay mortgages, they've got kids. It's like you can't just pivot overnight. So I'm well aware of the practicality. So it's Bjarke calls it, I'm quoting you, Bjarke, was it sustainable hedonism or practical utopianism or practical utopias? I get that. So you got to solve the things that make sense and then allow for that room to flourish in culture and life and joy.
Takes time. Well, looking forward to hearing the full talk soon.
Yeah.
Ricardo, welcome
Yep.
on the podcast.
Thank you. Big fan of your podcast and so happy to be here with you.
Appreciate it. So obviously we've had Samir on before. Tell us how you two connected.
Oh, it is a very fun story, and it actually relates to these kind of events because we met in these events, the Facade Tectonics and in the Facades Plus. We kept bumping into each other and they were like, oh, this guy is cool. And we started, talking and having good fun and whatever. And since we are obviously facade geeks, both of us, then one thing led to another and we partnered up, and now we have a large team, his fine reputation and our acquired knowledge and muscle of the company at Mexico. So now we are doing this together.
Of course, is the focus on South America?
No, it is actually mostly North American. It's in Mexico we have around 20 projects on a yearly basis as the Facade Studio.
Sure.
Once we partnered up with Samir, we managed to also offer some new projects to acquire some new projects in New York. Also in Miami we have some projects now. So yeah, we are right now dealing with something around 30 projects between Mexico and the US. So yeah, mostly North American. In South America, we are right now putting a proposal for some projects in South America, but It's different. It's a little more. It's a little slower to get over there.
Yeah, tell us. Obviously, you have very unique requirements in Florida and New York, respectively. But what have you seen in Mexico in your projects? Trends, challenges, constraints. What is really driving facade design?
It is too fun to do projects in Mexico because we are too close to the U.S. and we get to see the awesome buildings, and we want to do awesome buildings. But most of the times, the developers don't have as much money as they have here, and we are also a lesser regulated market, and that leads to a very creative way of designing facades because they you need to make buildings to resemble the ones globally available, but with way less budget. So you need to chop off a lot of the fancy stuff that the facade systems could do, and boil it down to the very basics. No, so it's very risky and very challenging design, architectural design, and you have you have fewer elements to do a good facade. The other thing is that we have a good weather.
Well, temperate weather, so different requirements. But what really drives costs? Is it labor costs? Is it material availability? Is it contractor
material availability mostly? Yeah, because most of the materials are imported. The added value products. Right now, Vitro and Saint-Gobain already have a coater in Mexico, but we didn't have it for years. So those kind of markets were underdeveloped. Now they are ramping up. But availability of products is something. Labor is very, very cheap, so they don't mind, you putting a lot of people into work. But they're also not very well trained. So if you come up with a fancy or a new material or procedure for them, they just cannot deal with it because they don't know it. No?
So do you see a lot of stick built construction instead of prefabricated components?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of facade of glass, it is somehow globalized, and we do have prefabricated. Also, we have a good part of precast panels, a good industry in precast panels. But yeah, the rest is mostly done inside. Now, the big projects are pretty much the same as here and there. We deal with them in the same way that in the US. But on smaller projects or in other cities in Mexico, it's more handmade on site.
When you're doing projects on the coastline, are you dealing with maybe impact requirements,
Absolutely.
higher design pressures?
So something really funny is that, again, it's an unregulated market. So most of those concerns are mostly because developers want to do it in a good way, because they're not required to think about stuff like impacts. We provide CFD analysis and all those kind of analysis to let them know, hey, your facade is going to withstand a hurricane or whatever, but it's not mandatory. The fun part is that it is not mandatory for in Mexico.
Wow. So yes. You don't see in those, I mean, I'm guessing we probably see a lot of non-thermally broken aluminum systems. It's predominantly aluminum fenestration, right?
Yes. I mean, in Mexico, you don't need, again, we have a very, very good weather in Mexico.
Sure.
It's mostly hot. In some parts, it's actually cool. Like in Mexico City, it's cool, tending to cold, but not minus something degrees.
For the most part, are you using insulated glass or is
insulated glass? Yes, in big cities, yes. In the other cities, no, because there are not enough glass processors. But yeah, I was telling you about thermal break. It's not needed in Mexico because we don't go below freezing point over there. So condensation is mostly, I mean, it's not as important than over here.
Are you doing a lot of field quality control testing?
Yes, that is also something very fun. And that I would say that the side of our business that I enjoy the most, because it is very, very fun to do, is forensic analysis. And yes, watertight, the ASTM E1105, which is very fun to do. And we try to shape our process like in the pizza Formula 1. And so we go over there all with our uniforms, and a lot of people. We have a big crowd of people doing one little thing. So we do a lot of those very fast, and it is very, very good fun to do that.
So we're going to see Ricardo next month in Monterey, and
yes.
We're looking forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Actually, for the third time, a repeat guest. We got Eugene coming over from the pond. So welcome to New York. Welcome, Eugene, and thanks for making the visit over.
Yeah, I'm so excited to finally see you in person. I literally see you for the first minute.
It is better than on camera.
Straight away in the camera, the first introduction.
So let's hear kind of raw, unfiltered, your first take after getting off the plane and walking through some of your big takeaways on existing facades here.
I can notice how much retrofit is going on. and remediation. Not remediation, I don't know. Remediation is something in terms that we use for fire remediation in UK, but here repurposing. Not sure. I see a lot of cradles and people suspended off ropes doing something. So right outside my hotel, I'll probably send you some pictures. I have witnessed a opening up works of one of the facades in one day, from very early morning to early in the evening to late in the evening. And the guys opened up existing brick facades, top and bottom of the window, and they just completely covered that later on with membranes. So, and I understand this is happening all across New York as I walk around. So this is existing facades, about 50 to 60 years old. Windows are obviously not from that time, so they're probably around 25 years old. And there's constantly some works happening on them. The most interesting thing to me was the absence of thought originally how these facades would be accessed in the future for inspection, remediation, changing anything. So it's so ad hoc that was just so surprising to me. It's probably that it's different to what we have in Europe from the perspective of even back in the day, there was some provision for access built in. And in New York, I'm not sure that the historic building have that thought to it.
Well, there's a few things. There's access for cleaning, access for maintenance. And when people think, I think, existing buildings, they go back to these pre-war style buildings. And they're not thinking, your even modern 90s, 80s curtain walls are now 30, 40 years old and going to require a lot of maintenance. So because we have the FISP requirements, facade inspection safety program, where every 5 years you have to have physical hands-on inspection.
All right.
It requires that sort of intimate access for a design professional to have to do their probes and
externally.
Yes.
So every single facade every 5 years is access for safety externally.
Correct.
Okay, well,
it's a life safety issue, but it's something mandated in New York that I think is coming around in more cities, not per code requirement, but it's not something you see over there.
No. This is not the case. And I would imagine like New York and Manhattan, where we are and where I stay. From what I see, I constantly just have under this kind of being this professional deformation of me thinking that something will definitely fall on my head right now in this second. No, because you can see all these kind of ad hoc people there unsuspended on the ropes without any gantries on top of you.
So you don't see the sidewalk sheds, and that's part of it. If the building is deemed sort of unsafe structurally from a life safety standpoint, they have to leave that sidewalk shed.
Right.
That's costing the owner money to keep it rented and keep that access. So the owner should be incentivized or motivated to remediate the issues. What scares you more? Glass or opaque members?
No, anything falling off, and me knowing that anything that is falling off the facade, if it's like more than the fifth story, it has the capacity to travel much further away to just the gantry.
The wind
will take it. They will take it, and they can hit you. So I'm not sure. It's just I'm quite sure it's safe because I have looked online how many casualties were in the last year. Found nothing, which is I imagine that is fairly safe. So there's nothing really falling off and killing people or having any injuries, which is encouraging. So there's something in place, and now you just may confirm that this is actually the place is in places every 5 years. Someone monitors them.
Yeah, people used to do it by binoculars. They do drone inspections to see things up close, and you could do binoculars, especially areas you couldn't have access to, but your typical BMU system will allow you access accordingly around the elevation, and then you can rely on a suspended rope system to get you to more difficult areas.
Who is doing that? I'm so curious. Who is that person who is accessing this? Is like a bunch of consultants who have license to do it, or is it there's a designated person who's doing this?
What we call design professionals. There's what's called a QE, a qualified exterior wall inspector. So that might fall under your whole jurisdiction of what makes somebody qualified. A registered design professional, which is an architect or a licensed professional engineer. But the owners hire these design professionals to assess their building, do the physical hands-on inspection, and then recommend remediation programs, replacement programs, whether it's temporary or long-term.
They're not looking for leaks; they're looking for safety. That's something that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's leaks need to be resolved, and it depends. What are you talking about? Thermal leaks, air leaks, or other leaks?
No, the safety is critical, and I'm glad to hear that there's someone responsible for safety. Like there's an officer designated you can actually hire, and you're mandated by legislature to actually make that happen. That's for public good, and that's fascinating. This is in place, and I don't think we have that. I'm not aware of anything or a city in Europe that would be responsible for it. There's a legislatively responsibility of the owner to have the building safe, and there is operating and maintenance manual in place. Whether that is followed is a different question. So for a question to you, how is it policed? For example, I'm the owner of the building and I went bust. Like I just basically don't have any money to operate that. And who's in charge?
Department of Buildings.
The Department of Buildings.
The Department of Buildings has enforcers going around looking for these documents from the registered design professionals, basically saying your building is safe or your building remediation program's in progress. And at some point, the Department of Buildings runs out of resources, so they can't be checking every single building in all 5 boroughs, making sure everything's set. But that's the mechanism of policing. And New York City, I'd say the 5 boroughs are the most stringent. Probably Manhattan has the most scrutiny, and then the surrounding boroughs less and less. You go to New Jersey, right over the river, most of that stuff isn't inspected.
Right.
And so, it's tough to, especially from your perspective, extrapolate, this is how they do things in the States, because it's so different from not only city to city, but you go 5 miles in this direction or this direction, it could be completely different.
Yes, it's within even one city, it's so compartmentalized to the degree that, there's different regulations and laws from, across the street, across the river, across anything. There's different requirements there. So even as the same country, it's more of like a bunch of countries, together with different regulations.
I'm surprised that in London, especially, you don't have that type of life safety inspection requirement on existing buildings.
You do, but I'm not sure. I can't point the finger at how it's, legislatively. It's not something like every 5 years. I'm not aware of that, that there will be someone looking at if it's safe or not. We now have something like that in place, but it's not as police. For example, you have a separate department to look after whether the building's safe or not. We only recently have something like that, and people really look at fire safety. You may have heard of Grenfell disaster.
Sure.
And after that, there's a building safety regulator in place for reviewing all the existing building safety. But for some reason, it's more about fire, whether there's fire escape in place, whether staircases are in place, whether the materials are appropriate, whether there's what you call fire blocking in the walls and compartmentation, but not necessarily from safety. Just recently, 3 weeks ago, there was a disaster in central London, Holborn, which would be central Manhattan. A very young man, 23 years old, was leaning out of his balustrade, looking at whether the delivery of his pizza would be arrived, and the balustrade gave way. Unfortunately, he died. What we now learn is that this building was inspected only last year, and the signs of corrosion were found on that balustrade. And what they decided to do, they decided to paint over them. So, going back to that question,
it's usually these incidents that lead to more stringent requirements.
And there should be a competent person reviewing that. We now are really good at getting a competent person to design, but actually, what we just find out, we may not have a competent person to review these buildings for the safety. And that's actually where I think New Yorkers appear to be really ahead of Europe, at least London at least, yes.
Eugene, thanks for coming on. Big takeaway. It seems like we are ahead when it comes to structural inspections, but we have a lot to learn in terms of fire safety and things to continue to share with one another. So Eugene, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, Nico, for having me.
All right, we got our next one, and we got, wow, I got to mention Chris, the big man sponsor of the day, W&W Glass. So Chris, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, Adrian.
So we're coming from New York, where I'd say W&W does work nationwide, but this is really your core and your hub.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do majority of our work here as a union glazing contractor. And we have also another business where we're providing structural glass systems throughout the country as well.
So it's good timing, because we actually just had a clip with Jeff on talking and reflecting. That was a couple years back, but what I like is so much of that stuff is still applicable today. And the clip or the theme was, you guys do very much so kind of the cream of the crop, upper echelon, something custom, something unique, something somebody else doesn't want to take on. And what comes along with that is a lot of times you're experimenting with new means of materials, pushing the envelope or limit with systems. Can't speak of the project, but somebody's doing some R&D about a means of push and pull testing to assess the structure, to try to install something new. So I would think what comes along with that is, a lot of lessons learned that you need to carry forward into future projects. I guess how, as an organization, is that information really shared within? Do you guys do any means and methods of case studies, reflecting back on what's gone right, what's gone wrong, to carry a lot of these principles forward into future projects?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously, as a glazier here, we're doing all kinds of testing, whether it be on site. We have a huge mock-up rig at the back behind our facility up in Nanuet, about 20 miles off the road. And we also do a lot of lab testing, a lot of times in York, Pennsylvania, doing huge large-scale mock-ups there, whether it be unitized curtain wall, structural glass systems, things like that. We take all that and we kind of shared amongst our organization, but we also do some case study work as well to try and share this with the architectural and construction community. There's a lot of things that we're doing that are very unique. I think we get that opportunity here in New York that sometimes other folks may not get throughout the country, and we certainly like to share that through videos and case studies, so that way, maybe it'll spur on some creativity with some other architects and maybe other glazing contractors throughout the community to try and achieve those types of feats and come up with some custom engineering to be able to attain those types of projects.
So because of the complexity or scope of work that you take on, you have to work with suppliers from all over the world. And what comes along with that is maybe working with suppliers you haven't worked with in the past, or taking on for the first time. So what are some protocols or processes you put in place from a QA/QC standpoint, whether it's oversight or monitoring in their shop before it comes here and before that shipment happens? I'd imagine there's high risk getting a shipment of new glass or oversized glass to find out you have issues with your PIB, your secondary sealant, or cracks or chips, etc. So is that kind of a standard process to have people visually in these plants as part of the process during procurement?
Absolutely. Any newer vendor, we would vet out, certainly make sure that they were a financially solvent company, but also from a quality standpoint, we have boots to the ground that will be in there, whether it's W&W or external consultants that will be in their plant in addition to W&W folks. We would never let any, fabricated material come over from a newer vendor, especially without getting some eyes on it to make sure that it's the right standard and quality level. So we kind of go through the same process on every project. If it's a newer vendor, certainly we generally work off of a lot of long-term relationships. We work with some of the highest quality vendors in the world, and we're comfortable in saying that. We try to kind of stick to what we know and who we know when we can, but certainly there are newer folks that are putting in some new equipment that produces some larger capacity and capabilities. So we're happy to look at them and take a look and see if we can work with them, but we will certainly go through a QA/QC process with them, and we will want to be there to meet with them and see their processes on site before any of that material would ever come over. A lot of that also happens in the mock-up phases of a lot of the larger projects as well, to try and work out any bugs and let the architects come and take a look at that product, whether it be over there or on the mock-up over here.
Well, I guess because you work on such custom focused or oriented work, you have the luxury, I would say, maybe you wouldn't agree, but I'd say the luxury that for the most part, all your projects probably do have that VMU and PMU process built in. Is it a rarity for you to not experience that on a project?
It just depends on the size of the project and the owner's desires and the consultant and things like that on it. I'd say on the structural glass end, there's less of a chance to have a mock-up, because unless it's a very, very large custom podium type project, other parts of the country, they may just say, okay, if your testing's good, we're going to go ahead and move forward with that system because we reviewed the testing and are happy with the sizes and capabilities and requirements from that test to be applicable to our project. But for certainly in the unitized curtain wall world, more often than not, you're doing a VMU and a PMU on almost all of those projects to assure that the owner is getting what you're expecting.
Well, I think it's important also to say, just because you do that PMU and you have that piece of paper that says it passed, doesn't mean you're not going to come up with surprises in the field.
Sure.
So it's equally important, I'd say, to have oversight and just visibility in terms of coming up with atypical conditions or, getting everybody on the same page about that first install.
Sure. And one thing to note is you're not going to be able to mock up every single condition on a job site, right? So, you never know what the folks before you, we're the prima donnas of the industry, it's the glazing contractors, so we come last. We expect everything to be set a certain way, but when it's not, we figure out ways and solutions to come up with to be able to work with those conditions and adjust our anchorage or adjust our system to be able to accommodate that on the project and make sure that they're still going to get the same high quality level they're expecting.
So yeah, I think an important point is you need that high level of service up front, but equally throughout the project to make sure everything goes smooth.
Absolutely.
So Chris, thanks for coming on, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you very much.
All right, welcome. Our next edition on the podcast, and we originally ran into each other in Boston.
Absolutely.
But happy to see you here in New York.
Yeah.
And you've had some firm changes, so tell us about that first.
Oh, absolutely. And just want to say thank you so much for, it was great to meet you and finally do this. And just really appreciate your contributions to raising awareness and sharing all your insights, not only on LinkedIn, but through this podcast and stuff. It's great to have a voice that's raising topics and helping drive something that as architects, we're not very good at, which is just communicating with each other, sharing insights, best practices,
Sure.
Right? Because when clients hire us, this is like baseline, right? They're looking for folks that actually, have a level of competency but things are so nuanced in our industry that not having platforms like this or having the ability to communicate and share is a detriment. And so this is actually really raising the level of proficiency across the industry. So I just want to make sure that I started with that. Because
I appreciate it. I think it's the reason why I do this and why I'm happy you're on is because, first of all, I think I attract participants that want to share what's happening behind the scenes. And a recurring theme across the country is, we have these new upgrades or updates rather to codes and revisions, and you get this like chaotic moment of what do we do from the manufacturer standpoint on how do we upgrade our systems for compliance, but then not from envelope consultants and architects on enforcement and integration into design documents. How do we make this work? And one recurring topic that we've been talking about for years is energy code and the challenges associated with that. But I think the big thing now is having a recurring theme too is a focus on performance over compliance. So yes, we need to adapt to and comply with the requirements, but there's much more of a focus on performance and focusing on that three-dimensional analysis of your spandrel conditions or those interfaces that were at one point overlooked. So maybe you could talk a little bit about why the firm has focused on adopting some of the practices to address those issues and some of the technology behind that.
And if it's okay with you, I want to feed the first question in of, the changes that have happened with StudioNYL. So we've always been, a design forward consultancy, and we've been able and fortunate enough to collaborate with folks that want to achieve aspirational design in whatever modality that may be. Sometimes it's a look at me kind of imagery on magazines, hero images, but other times some of our most successful projects are the more modest ones where you actually, where design contributes or matters most, right? To be able to elevate a small, modest project into a level that conventional thought or processes couldn't do. And so with the merger with Lurch Bates, we're able to take our small little team and combine it with the infrastructure, the leading technology, and the wonderful practitioners that already exist there. And this is just like a booster pack because you've got folks that I've started to meet across the country, and the passion for architecture, for design, for giving a damn about process, about performance is unparalleled. And so you combine these two elements and these two groups together, and it's just like going to be a rocket ship that goes up. And so we touch on performance, and so sure, there's a mixed bag of different criteria, different code standards, different code bodies. Some municipalities have decided to take more of a tip of the spear approach and really kind of lead the nation in progressive performance targets, either through Massachusetts, which has the stretch code. They also have an additional opt-in code, which is even more stringent. So some municipalities have decided that it's better for their community and constituents to really keep raising the bar even beyond what the normal legislation requires. You have Minnesota, which has the E3, I think, or B3, I can't quite remember what it is, but it has similar kind of progressive nature where for that code, they're actually looking for the performance targets for every room along the exterior enclosure. So it's not just an aggregate or an average U value calculation, but it's per room to make sure that the occupant comfort and the performance for that space behind the exterior enclosure meets certain criteria. And so you're really seeing this ability to dial in and target not only global building performance, but spatial performance as well. And the industry needs to adapt and to respond. We've taken the initiative in-house of developing our own bespoke tools that can start to automatically track point thermal bridging, linear thermal bridging, perform calculations in near real time. It acts as a design tool to provide feedback from what is ostensibly an opaque idea of how do you synthesize all these different conditions to help inform the design team to make better decisions.
It's all great. And I think you start from a point of setting new benchmarks or precedents, and then other jurisdictions and geographies start to adopt those principles. So it's almost like you could look at what's happening in the heating dominated climate zones and say, that's going to come, next to New York, then in the mid-Atlantic and so forth. What are the challenges when it comes to more strict requirements and then actually having the resources to help teams comply with it? I mean, what you're describing, all the additional resources needed to do all those modeling efforts.
Yes.
Is that readily available?
No, that's going to be a challenge, I think, for many municipalities. So think IECC 2024. which is going to start being adopted in various jurisdictions just through the natural evolution of adopting the next code cycle. Like in Massachusetts, I think we were able to adapt easier. I'm not saying it was just clear sailing, but we were able to more easily adapt to it because we had the first version of the stretch code, and there was just a sense of like, hey, this is the better way to build and to construct. Now you take similar obligations, apply it to municipalities or areas or regions of the country that didn't have that ability, that on-ramp, and they're going to get hit with this thing. Whereas like now we have to track this, we have to track this, we have to track this. We've never done that before. I've practiced 30 years, blah, 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 right? Yeah. We've never had to do this before, but they're going to find themselves in like a pickle because they're going to want to go through down compliance paths. So it's not only the design team, but it's also educating AHJs, contractors. It's really taking an industry that resists change at all levels and really forcing them to think critically about construction. You can't get away with lossy construction or detailing anymore. Everything matters, and that's going to be a shock to the system, to the design system, government, construction, the whole supply chain.
And on a last final question, of course we're gonna give the most credit to the design team, but who do you think feels the most pressure or has the most responsibility in the sense of the contractor is ultimately going to buy the materials and the assemblies that are going to comply with the requirement, right? But is all that pressure now on the envelope consultant to navigate, okay, well, how do I meet these code requirements, but also keep my owner happy, meet their budget, keep the architect happy in terms of the look they want, and all these parameters that you have to bring and make work harmoniously?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, so speaking as an architect, but also as an enclosure consultant, I think we need to lead. We need to educate. We need to demonstrate. We need to be able to clearly articulate why all of this is important and to draw and bring people along. It's not something that you can just top down mandate, beat someone over the head with and force compliance, right? That's the surefirest way to get a negative reaction, right? Dig your heels in and be recalcitrant. We are in a unique position to be able to help lead the industry and to create a graceful transition into a more sustainable future.
I like that answer. I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Great conversation.